With a screening at the upcoming Belfast Film Festival, John Carlin's new feature film, Lie of the Land, has endured a long but rewarding process for the director.
You're grinning behind the monitor the whole time. Now that is the most rewarding thing of the whole process. What the cast do in front of the screen is better than you envisage, and it just gives you that buzz. It's the thing that draws you back.
We dig deep, delving into John's origins as a filmmaker to his short films and finally the conception and production of Lie of the Land on this extended edition of The Scene. So Lie of the Land is screening at the Belfast Film Festival 7th of November, 8:30 p.m. at the Strand Arts Centre. Tickets can be purchased at the Belfast Film Festival website at belfastfilmfestival.org. The Belfast Film Festival, which runs from the 2nd of November to the 11th of November, is an excellent event for highlighting local talent and international talent, and for us as a community to get to see films we don't normally get to see in the cinema. You know, cinemas these days, the material, a lot of it is like what we see in the television. It's big, it's broad, it reaches a huge audience. Some of the stuff you see at the Belfast Film Festival, though, are local stories told by local people in a film industry that is growing tremendously in this country. So please support it. Go out and support local film and local storytelling. Our conversation between myself and John, it is a bit longer than the normal podcast. It's nearly 2 hours, and the reason why I've kept it at that length is for anybody looking to get into the film industry and looking to make their first film. It's a great insight to show you the journey and how long it can take for you to get to that opportunity of making your first feature film. John has been working in the film and TV industry for over 20 years, and he's gone through making short films with NI Screen to very small budget short films to bigger budget short films, and now an NI Screen funded feature film that is playing at the Belfast Film Festival. I hope you enjoy. So what made you want to get into filmmaking?
Filmmaking for me started at the age of 9 when I first watched Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. This is a bit cheesy, but anyway, this is how it happened. I watched Indiana Jones on video and watched it 3 times in a row, and then the next day Mum was like, do you know there's another one, Raiders of the Lost Ark? It's the first one.
Right.
So straight down to the video shop, got that out, watched that, totally blown away. And then I was like, God, these are brilliant. Is there any more? She's like, no, but the same man made Jaws. So went down, got Jaws, and I was like, how this one person did these?
Yeah.
And she was just like, yeah.
So
Steven Spielberg.
You went through a rabbit hole then of Spielberg.
Yeah.
You started off, and what age were you when
8 or 9 years old.
Right, very good. I remember, funny enough, when I was a kid, there's always movies that you rewatch loads of times because they're on a VHS or you've recorded them off the TV, whatever. And Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom was one for us. I remember me and my sister used to watch it all the time because it was the visual aspect of that movie, even relative to the other Indiana Jones movies, was so visceral. It was so, the temple where there's the blood and all. Yeah. It's like really out there visual stuff that would stick with you as a kid, It's scary, but it hits you, and then you have to return the video by 6 o'clock, rewind, the next day. So can you sneak it in again 3 o'clock the following day? Can I watch it one last time? So that's the kind of way, to me, that was the introduction to film. Okay.
And from that point then, sort of staying around that path of the Goonies and, just sort of all the classics and Gremlins and things, they all sort of came along. And I was just fascinated by this way that people can tell stories that just hit you. This is middle America stories. And I'm sitting there in Derry, Northern Ireland going, I want to be the Goonies, I want to be Karate Kid, I want to be Ghostbusters. And I just couldn't get over how this is just so personal to me.
Yeah. It's amazing. It was an amazing time in Hollywood and the film industry in general, where I don't think it's been repeated, where in the 1980s there was tons of classic kids movies. And, we're not just saying that because we grew up at the time. You look at any decade, even there was kids movies in the 90s, but the 80s there was tons of them, comedies and like you were saying, the Gremlins, all sorts of different creative things that we don't sort of get now.
Back to the Futures and all that. You could go on for an hour on this alone, but it is every single thing was another fantasy world, another place that you hadn't been before. And when you're growing up, just in grey Northern Ireland, you're like, is this it? And then you see this, And it just does something to your brain that you just feel excited and want to tell stories. And from that point as well, having the He-Man figures, and where everybody else but was just doing the action figures from He-Man. No, to me it was like trying to recreate the scenes of the movies I just watched. So I had the He-Man figures with matchboxes in their back to be Ghostbusters, and trying to sort of set out scenes, not realizing at that stage this was all me trying to tell stories and where I would sort of position them onto a camera as such. But that's how it started, and it never really left me ever. In fact, even in late primary school, they say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "Oh, I only direct films," which you get to laugh at. There was astronauts, footballers, and I was a film director.
So what was your first experiences like actually filmmaking, with a camera?
It would have been around 12 or 13. Very lucky that my dad, he was into photography and things like that. And we were one of the few people that I knew in my sort of area that we had a video camera just for making stupid home videos. And it was brought on because we had family in New Zealand. So we wanted to send them, sort of how we were getting on and, singing songs and this kind of stuff. But I would sort of play with the camera, and same thing as well. So just He-Man figures, really, really basic stuff, or Star Wars figures, and just sort of do stuff like that. So that's 12 or 13 kind of age, where I started realizing that it's where I place the camera that does it. And then I wasn't lucky enough to be at the school that had kind of facilities to do any kind of filmmaking. So anytime I got a chance to film something for the school, even if it was talent shows or stuff like that, I would volunteer and I would do the camera work. So 15, 16, 17 years old, anything my school had, until finally getting to, it was foundation art when I was 19 years old, was the first time I got to make something properly, with a story.
But that's how lucky, especially on a local level now, students are. I was in University of Ulster and seeing their facilities. I was in the Met. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, it was broadcast standard. Because I remember even when I was at university and went to do film and TV, and the equipment was so basic.
Yeah.
So the kids now, the facilities are there, use them and realise that they weren't there 10 years ago.
I mean, I went to University of Ulster. I did visual communications. So this is now 20 years old. And even they had super VHS cameras, and our editing was done from VHS tape to VHS tape. So you had to physically mark in one tape and then record it onto the second tape. And whatever you recorded on that second tape was your cut. There's no way going back and tweaking it, because you did it linear.
I think things like that hone your focus, though.
They do.
The way now, like, technology's made everything so easy. I think it brings sloppiness into people, and they don't look at it like a craft. You know what I mean? So you get a phone out of your pocket, take a photo, you take a video, and then you tweak it or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at the lengths you made to cutting things, it gets you into like a scarcity mindset of what I'm doing here is really important and I need to get it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There was no going back. So when you plan for those, say, very rudimentary short films you made in uni, when you went out in the shoot, you had to make sure you had every single little piece covered, so that when you came to doing this edit, you knew that I couldn't go back and go, I'll do an insert of a close-up that I forgot to do on the shoot, because you didn't have that choice just from these VHS machines, And that was it. That's what started it into thinking, going, right, you have to tell it in advance before you even pick up a camera. You have to have it pictured in your mind.
So short films, how did making short films prepare you for your shoot in your feature film?
I'll take a wee half step back, if you don't mind, because
Yeah.
I was very lucky to work in a television company called Stirling Productions for 10 years. So I started that as a placement when I was in uni. So my third year, I did a year out. And in Stirling Productions, even though we were just sort of doing documentaries for television and things like that, they started doing drama recons, and this was still when I was a student in the uni. So I was getting to go out and film. I was the cameraman at that stage, and I was filming these bits and pieces of drama recon, and once again, sort of building towards narrative. And I worked with another guy called Aaron Gray, who was a scriptwriter. He was a producer as well. He still isn't in the BBC, but he was a scriptwriter back in the Stirling days. And we were working on this thing called Exposure. And it was a short film about a photographer who takes these sort of unique photographs, and then somebody comes in wanting to buy these photographs because he needs the money, these special photographs. But we worked on that when I was still sort of making these drama recons for BBC and RTE. And we went to a Northern Ireland weekend course where you get to sort of develop your short film, and one gets picked at the end of the 10 weeks. And we didn't get picked because they said it was going to cost too much. Fair enough. And sort of forgot about that. But luckily, over my career with Stirling, then I got to then direct more drama. So we did a series called Maru, and I was the director of that. And it's sort of real life murders, but they're just done as drama. And then we have Tony Devlin comes in as a narrator to sort of talk you through in Irish what's happening in the scene, and little did they know later on this was going to be fine, such and such. Mm-hmm. And then Shocked came along, which was the Irish language drama series, sort of like a Hollyoaks type thing about 7 students living in a house together who all sort of attend a music school in Belfast. And that was a big deal. And I got to direct on the second series of that. So you're working with a crew of 40 or 50 people. And it was only after all that kind of learning that then I got the opportunity to make my short film, which is Exposure. And that was my first short. And that came about because one of the other alumni from Stirling Productions was Darren Chesney. And he had read the script way back 8 years beforehand and really loved it. And he approached me and just said, do you fancy making that? I think I can get it produced. And I went back to Aaron and the other writer, Paul Skillen, and we were like, yeah, so let's give it a go.
Yeah.
And that was it. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't gone through that sort of television world of drama recon and dramas, learning how to make a story, how to tell a story within a very small budget. You know, this is the thing, this is all low budget stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a key point there. Whenever, say, there's just people aspiring filmmakers or whatever, people at film school, there's nothing like being on set and seeing the mechanics of how these things are put together, because it makes you you can then troubleshoot things very, very quickly in prep, that if you don't know these problems, you're going to get exposed when you get on set. So there's things that seem very, very simple on the page, but the practicalities of them are very, very complicated. They take a long time and they cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, you know, so having that set experience is so vital. You know, the theory and all is well and good, and, you know, doing all that work, but being on set and seeing these things move, you know, I've seen so many times is, you know, people go on set and they get off to a slow start, and then really big scenes where they need the time at the end of the day, they don't have it.
Yeah.
And then it's a rushing match to get it done. You know, figuring out all those different things in prep is vital, and that comes with being on set, seeing how they're made, seeing how all these issues manifest themselves.
Yeah, and also I completely knew where I was. I was very young at this stage. I directed my first series, although it was about plastic surgery. It was a sort of fly in the wall documentary. I was 23 years old when I directed that series. So I did have an early start into this television directing, but I was directing Shocked at the age of 28, I think, something around that age. And I was walking into a lot more experienced crew. I'd never seen a HOD before. I didn't know. There was a head of wardrobe and a head of makeup, because we've been doing it by ourselves for the sort of cheaper television. We were just doing that stuff. I remember sitting there making vats of blood and things like that for our crime programs, you know, in the kitchen of Stirling Productions. But it was working in Shocked and finally seeing, there's somebody does the lighting, you know, somebody does all these other things. It made me realize, and because I was still quite young, I was like, when I go in on the first day, I'm going to make sure that I know my first 7 setups inside out. So when I go in, I'm just going to approach that set and go, right, this is what the first shot is, blah, 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 blah. And it just hit, so that people go, oh, right, he knows what he's doing, because you got these strange looks as you were quite young at that stage. So that's what I did. And that still stays me to this day. So to follow up your questions, like that experience of dealing with that pressure and, you know, finally seeing how things work, getting sides for the first time, having pre-production meetings, things you didn't really do, that they make you realize you have to make sure you know what you're doing when it gets to these shoots, especially in the low budget world and short films, that you do not have a second to waste.
Yeah, I think, you know, for anybody new that are wannabe filmmakers or whatever, or they're new to a film set, one of the things that you could surprise them, or people on the outside that don't know the industry, is that it's not a set full of filmmakers. It's a set full of people that specialize in things. You know, it's a constructive And you get a lot of people on set that aren't particularly interested in films, but they're just exceptional at a very specific thing. You know, you could be a grip or hair, makeup, costume, whatever. You know, and it's all those elements that make, you know, having a director over all that and having all those things come together on set. It's a really big process that people, that when the viewers are watching it on screen at home, they don't see that whole veneer is masked. Yeah. And they see, you know, and you hear budgets of 20 million, 25 million for a film, and the audience are probably going, where does all that money go? But you know when you know when you get on set, it's just money, just because it takes so much effort, so many people to make something that on screen looks fairly straightforward.
Yeah. The way I always put this was that the director side of things, that's because that's where I come from, is that you're just the conductor of a very talented orchestra, that everybody's bringing their piece together. And to make this piece of music, I just have to keep them all ticking, because you couldn't do it without any single one of them. They're all the talent, you know, and that's the cast and everything included in that. Whereas I'm just sort of keeping that on track to tell the story. And yeah, sometimes you do meet people on set that they're not really even interested in the story, but they are bloody great at doing the special effects or whatever it is. And you're just like, well, you couldn't do it without them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so how is it different than shooting a feature film to a short?
It's not really different, is what I would say, is because it doesn't matter if you were doing a short film at 7,500 over 2 days and you're doing a feature film at, you know, 300,000, let's say. It's still the same thing. You're under huge amounts of pressure. Money doesn't go that far, and you're still shooting like you're on a short film. Your call time is, you know, for us it was 1 until 11 each day, split days, and you're just, you know, going at it as fast as you can.
Absolutely. On a short though, you would have like a 2 or 3 day shoot, some maybe 4. But if you go into
I'm surprised at that one.
I've done one earlier on, worked on one earlier on, that was 4. But a feature film is a lot longer than that. You know, so you can put weeks of work into a 2 day shoot, whereas if you got a 3-week shoot and things get hairy in the middle or whatever, how important is the prep then? Because you know, you've got no respite. You might get a wee bit of time at the weekend or whatever. Well,
it's an endurance test is what it really is. It's all about prep. It always is. No matter what, that is the most important thing. That and story. I'll never forget that. But it's how you make sure that you have every single thing covered. You don't have time to lose. Now, on a feature like this, of course, I'm going to work in a contingency in my head. There was 2 endings that I could have shot. One that would have cut out a set piece of action. And to me, I was going, right, that will be, if anything goes wrong, and it could be just weather, because a lot of our stuff was outdoors for this feature, but it could be something like that. And you're going, we've now lost time, we've now lost a day, an actor could get ill. You know, there's so many things that you have to make sure that on something like this, you only have 18 days to shoot, and that's that. There's no more. That you will build something in and you keep that towards the latter half of the shoot. In my case, I actually kept it till the last night as my backup, that if we didn't have time, then we could drop that element and fill in the other scenes that we didn't get. Now, luckily, it was a really well-oiled machine. It's all to do with prep.
Absolutely. And would you storyboard, shot list before? So before you go in, do you know what you're going to shoot?
Yes, 100%. And it's probably due to the editing background. I've been a television editor as well for about 24 years. And it's always planning the shots for the edit. So even as I'm going into the shoot, I already know exactly what I want to shoot, angle for angle. Because
some people would say, you know, storyboards or shot lists or whatever lock you into something. But, I would look at it where, so like when I write scripts and say I have the final draft done, I would storyboard the whole thing. And what I look at is the storyboarding is like the final draft of the script. You know, after you've done your final writing, when you storyboard, then you start seeing all the logistical issues with the script. You know, even simple things like the way the actors block and stuff. So then I would storyboard and then I go back into the script and just make those tweaks to the action that didn't work in a visual sense.
That's clever.
But then you go into on the set. You're not locked into. Well, some people may want to be locked into them shots, but you can go in with storyboards and still be open minded to something on the day that you know that changes things.
No, that's the fun. That's the reason why we do this. It's the creative side of the job on the day that makes this interesting. That makes you want to do more. I mean, you're going in with. To me, I don't storyboard the way I used to. I used to storyboard everything, but even for a feature film, we only had like 6 weeks prep. It would take me 2 months to storyboard an entire movie. So I only storyboard a couple of key scenes that were, integral and were going to be difficult, only so I could show cast and crew certain parts going, this is how it needs to look. So, setting up a big set piece. But apart from that, the storyboarding side isn't something that I would ever say isn't helpful. You get to see what it looks like. That's the whole point. And that's why I've sort of been lucky with the editing side to train my brain into, I watch the movie in my head and I make the edits in my head before I even go to set. As I'm reading the script, I'm editing in my head. So I know every angle I need. And then when I turn up to set, it's all inside the head. I'll just do a shot list for something this size.
And it's important that, because especially in low budget, now you will hear advice from big filmmakers or whatever saying they find it on the day, they turn up the set and find it on the day, but they might only have a page and a half to shoot.
Yeah.
Compared to, say, I don't know what lay of the land, I'm guessing 4, 5, 6, 7 some days.
Yeah.
You need to hit the ground running. And if you're turning up the set with all this noise and loads of people asking you questions, because your whole day is just spent answering questions all day.
Of course.
And then you're trying to figure out how to shoot it as well. At least if you've got the foundation there and you go, right, set the camera up there, and then when you're making the thing, other things could pop into your head or whatever, but it's imperative to steer the ship in the right direction and get off to a quick start.
Yeah, you have to know what you're doing so that everybody else knows what they're doing. And that's how every single day, no matter if it's a short or a feature, that's how you have to approach this. And yeah, whenever the time to play for me is, if we set up a shot and it doesn't look great, then we'll sort of go, right, can we shoot it from here and stuff like that? So it mightn't have been ideal where I wanted to shoot it from, but I'm talking about changing a lens or moving it 3 foot to the left. That's about as far as it goes. And then it's the actors. That's where you have the fun. You rehearse with them and then you give them that wee bit of freedom. I always say, don't marry yourself to the exact words on the page, because I like things to sound natural. And sometimes when people are sort of working from words on pages, it sounds like they're delivering words on pages to me. So that's where you have the fun. You just let them have a play through the scene.
Nigel O'Neill is in this movie, and you've worked with him
a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's it like then? You see it all the time with big directors working with the same actors all the time. The feature film.
It's basically, I'll tell you what it is. It's because he's so easy to work with and he just gets you. You can go up and in 3 sentences, give him an emotion, a mood, or where you want the scene to go, what the aim of the scene is. And that's it. And he just does it. So that's the reason you like working with people like this, because they're just so good at it. And they connect with you that way. So I could go over and give notes to each of the actors. I'll probably spend my least time with Nigel because he just gets me straight away.
Yeah, there's a shorthand you develop. You need enough to develop like a telepathic type thing. It's not telepathic per se, but you both develop an understanding of the qualities you both have and what each of you want from each other type thing.
That's it. And plus, he's just really good fun to work with. I mean, he's
done tons of stuff on a local level. He's done Bad Day for the Car. He's done loads of shorts. He's done loads of local. You always see him popping up.
He's brilliant.
He's in everything.
And just to have him on set, he just makes you laugh, and then he delivers every time, and you're just going, why wouldn't you work with him again? And I hope to work with him again in the future. I'll get him to do something else as soon as I possibly can. But he's just, someone you can build something with a number of times, and you know that they're reliable. So that's why he's always top of the list, anything I do.
So how long was the shoot for Lie of the Land?
It was 18 days, and it was a Monday to Saturday for 3 weeks. So we got the Sunday off. And it was February. It was freezing cold. It was half of it's outdoors. We were in a house that didn't have any heating with filming. So yeah, 18 day shoot. And it was over in a blink of an eyelid. It's just disappears.
A clever thing about the script is the fact it's all set in one location. And for you to do a shoot like that's a huge challenge. But not to have the headache of logistics must have been a huge help, where you're just going to the same place every day and you're not turning up. You've got no new surprises of a location.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you, until it was very late on in the process, there was another huge sort of sequence near the top of the film that took place at a cattle mark. And to me, I was going, that's going to be, even though it's only probably 4 pages in length, that's going to be a full day's filming, because it's a full set, set move. Crew will have to go down there. There's, dressing in extras and things like this, getting cattle down there. And the reason why we got rid of that is because we're going, we can't fit it into 18 days of a schedule. It's as simple as that. And some of these decisions are made because of either money or time. And that's just the world we live in, making, low budget films. But the rest of the story kind of did take place on the farm itself. And that was huge. You could not do it if it wasn't like that. I know I look at some of the other new talent focused films that have been out over the years, and they have, 11, 12, 13 locations. I don't know how they managed to cover that stuff, because we spent 18 days on one farm, and we had a big production offices and everything, and catering set up in the same place every day, which, just felt like it was a studio shoot. But, there wasn't 1 second that we weren't working. It was just non-stop.
And you mentioned something interesting there about the house had no heating. We're about to go on to talk about how it was a lot of nights involved.
Yeah.
So no heating, so there's no room for prima donnas there. So what, you must have then got a cast involved that were just completely committed to the project then.
100%. And crew. We were filming, there's fields and everything around us. People were, muck up to their knees and everything. The cast had their own, we kept one of the bedrooms in the house for them, and they had a lovely wee setup with, an air bed and big comfortable seats. And they had one of those sort of gas canister heaters sitting there, which was on full blast for them. So we were all really, really well looked after. But, we all knew what we were getting into. We were all going, we're out in the middle of the countryside with no cover for wind, because it's just a wind tunnel when you're out in the countryside. And it's February, and it's cold, and it's dark, and it's wet. And there wasn't a single person with a grumpy face the whole time. Everybody was just there because they were all...
Really?
Yeah. That is the truth. Everybody was there because they loved the script, they loved the story.
Well, that's the key that I was just about to ask you about. It's imperative then, on a job like that, really micro budget, you need a crew and cast of team players.
It is. When we were crewing this up, it doesn't matter what role they were in the crew, the first question I asked everybody when we were interviewing was, what did you think of the story? Because I wanted a team of people there who all got the story. Because then if we're all working off the same page, quite literally, then it'll make it easier. And that's how everybody got picked for this job. And same with the crew. The cast. I talked to a lot of the casts about the story and things like that. And the ones that we went with were the ones that sort of told back a version of the story that was close to what I had in my head. So I was going, right, this is the team. And I don't think there's any other way that you could make something like this unless you had everybody completely invested in what they're telling together. So
I noticed in your early shorts, there's horror elements to them.
Yeah.
What were the inspirations there? Because you work with writers. So I remember you talking briefly earlier on about exposure and how that project manifested itself. But why did you want to attach yourself to that and that genre?
There's a very simple answer to that. It's because, to me, horror is kind of the easiest way to get a reaction from the audience. Comedy's really hard to do, to get people to laugh in that audience. Put something scary on, even if it's a jump scare, you will get half your cinema leaping off their seat. And I just sort of understood that from an early age, going that it's something that you can...
It works from low budget and stuff, doesn't it? It works, in terms of, you can make it really dark, and there's so many low budget hits.
Blair Witch Project was buttons, But that's it, and you're just trying to tap into somebody's fear. And that's why I make film, is because I like to sort of tell a story that gets the audience invested, gets a reaction out of them. And for me, I thought horror was always the kind of easiest way. So from my first short film, I happened to say fall in with these two writers. It's Aaron Gray and Paul Skillen, who have the same kind of mind as me, and they like these kind of wee twisted stories. And we sort of built up a few shorts at the start that all had these kind of horror elements. Even if it's sci-fi as its description, it still had horror elements in all these films. And it's just something, because I think that it's an easy thing for an audience to sort of get enthralled with. And
there was a definitely looking at your early shorts, and you could see it in Lay of the Land as well, but there was, what drew me straight in was you didn't really know what was going on in the start of the shorts in a really good way, because of as the way you handle exposition visually, how you visually told the story. You withheld information, and gradually as the shorts progressed, then we started to see details of the story unfold. But there's something really interesting with the very early parts of your short. It makes you intrigued, going, what's going on here? So how did that process manifest itself?
It's just always the way I think stories should be told. I mean, it's a personal taste thing to start off with, but my favourite films are things that you only find out the story. My favourite film of all time is Requiem for a Dream. Blue Ruins, another one. We need to talk about Kevin. They're all things that you don't know what's happening for the majority of it. I love watching films like that you're going, what's happening, and then something happens. I always kind of boiled it down to, maybe it's because I did film studies at uni and things like that I was sort of taught to read a movie, and you're always trying to second guess the movie. I think it's just, when you're a filmmaker, you always go, oh, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? But the movies that interest me the most and make me forget that I'm watching a film are the ones that the story only unravels bit by bit, and you're constantly scratching your head and you're just sucked into it. So it's always been an element that I wanted to bring to my work.
In your movies, even early on, there's the editing's very strong. And you have a background in editing, haven't you?
I do, yes.
So how did that benefit you as a director?
I think it's my biggest skill is having that edit background. It's the thing that, to me, I cannot direct without knowing how it's going to be cut. And I say that it's a time-saving thing, because on set then I know exactly what I need. If something's not working, I can cut what I have shot in my head and go, right, we'll just need this one pickup from this angle, and that's us covered, and then we can move on. So having 20 odd years of editing experience is a vital thing for me to be able to do what I do on set. And I think, especially even working with television documentaries, to me, they're slightly harder than drama, because you have to find the story. Drama, to me, is that you have the story and you go out and you shoot it. So I think that what that's done to me is program my head into seeing shots in a timeline. And that's how I even look at a script. I'm building a timeline the whole way through it. So when it comes to making movies, making shorts, it's straight into, like, I can visualize the edit before I even pick up the camera.
The great thing about that is, on set, you see different directors, and some directors aren't very strong with coverage, you know, and they'll have a DOP that is, and then their focus is on the actors. But the great thing about having a strong editing background is the confidence it gives you on set. You know what you need.
Yeah.
And I have seen it a lot of times where directors would overshoot a scene because of just, they don't know, you know, and they're good directors, don't get me wrong, but they have an insecurity about not having enough coverage, because they haven't visualized how the whole thing's going to cut together and how it's going to sequence together. So having the editing background can be so beneficial to getting your call sheets complete and to move through the scenes pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's the secret to it for me. And that's why I go, how has no one else got this background? You know, I see these other directors and sort of hear stories and go, but they've no edit, you know, with them. How do they see this that way? Because that's the way I work. But I've actually had DOPs, and I'm not someone who's ever sort of trying to boast or things like that, but I've had DOPs come to me saying, it's brilliant working with someone like you, because you know the coverage inside out, and you said, you know, it's saving me so much time. To me, it's just second nature. It's not anything that's planned. It's just been ingrained in me after repetition of years and years and years of doing it.
Yeah, and it helps you join the dots then, doesn't it? Between one sequence and the next sequence. And I always think on set, when you have one person steering that ship, I think it benefits everybody. It makes the crew, everybody knows what way the whole production's moving.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you've got confidence in somebody that knows how the scenes are getting constructed and how the latter scenes are getting constructed, and you might have this, you know, in your head, cut a scene a specific way because it will reveal something 50 pages down the line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And having that idea, and not just coming in and people going, oh, you need to shoot it that way, you need to shoot it that way, you know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and they're not as invested in the story, and they don't understand some of the nuances of maybe the editing that you're getting across.
It does mean it, and I talk about the edit when I'm on set all the time to everybody. So even if the first AD's coming and going, right, we have to wrap this up now because we have to move on to the next thing. You know, I'm going, right, well, if I just get this one shot from this angle, that gives me what I need to complete this scene on screen. And, you know, the rest of your cast and crew very quickly understand that they trust you because you talk to them about how it looks. I've had times where, you know, and it saves you time. We'll have the focus puller come up to you saying, God, sorry, that, you know, whenever they said that part's out of focus. And I was like, no, but I'm not seeing that part. You know, I'll still film the full take looking at you, but I only want to see that just for your first bit and maybe a look in the middle. And I know that already because I've cut it. So the focus puller comes up and says, oh, in the middle, they fluffed a line or it's out of focus. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter. I don't need it because I know that I'll be on this other shot at that stage.
That's so beneficial.
And immediately their crew go, oh, great. And they all go on, you know. So there's no arguments. There's no discussions or things like that, or people going, no, I really need that because it's going to look bad if my focus is out or something, you know. And I'm going, no, but, you know, don't worry.
And it all comes back to the commodity on set is time. That is, it's just time. Time is you know, and if you've got that editing head on you, you know what you need, you can just get through the days quicker. Yeah. And that doesn't mean rushing the scenes. That means you know exactly what you need, and then you can move on and get what you need in the next.
And
one.
Especially, you know, as happens to all of us, you're doing a scene and it's not really working for you. So I can kind of recut it again in my head, going, how do I make this work really fast? And go, right, in fact, let's just get 2 final shots here, just these things, and that's it, done. Whereas that could send you down a rabbit hole and you could spend half an hour trying to work it out with the team, going, how do we get this? And that's not really working, you know. Because that does happen. Yeah, and it saves so much time.
Does anything change? You know, you've got all this prep done. Does anything change on set that throws you for a loop? And you know, how what do you do to get around things that you have planned but aren't going to work?
Well, the biggest example I can give you is Lie the Land, and there is a dramatic scene towards the end that has full rain, gorgeous looking shots. And that's a crew of about 17, 20 of us standing in a field getting absolutely soaked. It was the biggest set piece of the movie. It was one of the parts that I had actually storyboarded because it was such an important part. And the heavens opened. But because we are filming these scenes over a number of nights, the other shots that were going to be cut into this were going to be filmed the next 2 nights. And there was no forecast for rain. And because we had all stood out on that field that night, and I'm talking, I went home and underwear was wet, even though we're all wearing wet gear, it was torrential, that we were able then to organise, thank God, to get in a rain machine for the other shots, the other nights to do it. But that's the thing, we had to there was a panic station that night. Once we filmed that scene, there was a meeting that night at midnight. We're going, what do we do? Because it's not going to be raining the next two nights. Is that footage good enough? And I was like, footage looks incredible, but we're going to have to try and find money in the budget to get a rain machine. And so, although I planned this in my head of how I wanted this to look, I never envisaged rain. It made it look better. But then I'm stuck going, how do I get the other shots to cut into that sequence? So we had 2 options. One, try and lose the other backup scene that I had in my head and drop that and reshoot this big sequence again. But that was a huge set piece, and it was going to be like, that's another night we're going to spend a lot of time doing the shots we've just done. And because the cast and crew had got soaked through to the bone, I was going, we have to use this. You know, it's not fair that we all stood there for 4 hours getting soaked. So the edit in the head was going, let's put Rain Machine into the other shots.
I love that though. That's one of my favorite things about filmmaking is when you're on set and you're making something and something that you weren't expecting happens that elevates the material. Especially if an actor does something where, and I experienced it last year when I was making Taxi Joe, a lot of the actors in it and a lot of they all took the parts to a level I didn't envision in pre-production. And when you see that, it's like so satisfying to see that happen, isn't it?
Now you're grinning behind the monitor the whole time. Now that is the most sort of rewarding thing of the whole process whenever you see the scene play out, and it is always better. You know, to me, the coverage in my head and how I see things. I'm not an actor. I don't think the way actors do or deliver things the way actors do. And whenever I'm reading the script, I'm just thinking about the shots, you know, and how it looks. And, you know, I still have the story in my head, but that's that thing, you know, 99% of the time, what the cast do in front of the screen is better than you envisage. And it just gives you that buzz. It's the thing that draws you back. So yeah, that is something that always slightly changes to what's in your head. But then you have those other big elements like the rain that then, it looks great. It looks kick ass. It's why wouldn't we use that? You know, can we get a couple of grand of the budget somewhere and get a rain machine in the next 2 nights?
So on Lie of the Land, you had another editor. You had Kate McCauley was the editor. Right. And you've edited a lot of your projects in the past. Mm-hmm. So what was that like, handing that over to somebody else? Was it like, were you control freaky about it, or were you
No, it was a really natural process. I mean, I have to be truthful in this, is that I did still cut parts of the film, but I did it because of time elements and because to me it was kind of easier. Instead of me sitting over somebody's shoulder and going, no, can we have an in point there and an out point there? Actually, can we just get a close? I would sometimes, when it came to sort of more difficult parts, I would just sort of edit that wee sequence together in the house and then just send it through. And Kate was so gracious and, you know, creative the whole way through it. Like, she cut that movie, don't get me wrong, but it was the way that I was able to communicate with her because of the edit and background. And I think it really helped, because even the language that we were even able to use each other, you know, it just was like another shorthand, because we were doing editor speak. You know, everybody else in the room is probably going, what are these two talking about? Yeah. We were just sort of saying about certain things and what layers and stuff like this. And it was just so easy. Now, I was slightly not concerned, you know, I don't know how to put it, but I was sort of going, God, I can't get to cut my own stuff. What's it going to be like? You know, there's a fear there, because that's all I've ever done.
And was there cutting taking place whilst you were shooting, or did you leave that until after the shoot was over? There
were scene assemblies being done, so Kate was cutting all that as we were shooting. So we were getting sort of dailies back, you know, stages, and you know, you don't even have a time to blink at these. So I was getting to watch those the next morning at 9 a.m. before then go back to the set and sort of seeing what had been shot 2 days ago.
But it just shows you, like, that the shoot you did, how long the working day is, because as a director, you turn up and you direct the show. That's not your day over. You're getting assembly sent to you, and then you're doing your prep for the next day. How much time did you have to invest in watching assemblies done every day?
As much time as I possibly could afford is a truthful answer. It depended on how the night before went or what might have to be done that day, because things slightly change where you mightn't got one scene finished, so we now have to slot that into a schedule. So I'd be talking to the AD in the morning, things like that. But, you know, your time for this, for example, our call time is 1 o'clock. I would turn up at 11:30, and then we wrap at 11 o'clock. I would leave at 12:30, and then get up around 8:30 the next morning, chat to my missus for half an hour, fill her in, everything's going, say hello, go down to my office for 2 hours and work on bits for that day, sort of getting everything all highlighted in my book. I always work from color-coded things and, this Bible that goes with me everywhere. And then watch the rushes and check over anything that might have been, photographs that might have been taken from the takes to make sure, what was the lighting like in that, because I have to now match it tonight and remember that. And so, no, honest to God, you don't have a second to blink.
So you're looking at your working day, you're looking at 14 to 16 hours.
Yeah, I was going to bed at 1:15 every night and then getting up around 8 o'clock-ish the next day. And it was, apart from that half an hour having a chat with my partner, it was all the rest of it was just movie land.
Yes.
I mean, that was one of those things. I had to have this conversation. She's seen me go on shoots before, so she understands what it's like. But she just said, like, I'm not going to see you for 3 weeks, so let's just say that, I'll see you in 3 weeks' time. And it's such a great thing for someone to do that to you, because it gives you every moment that you don't feel guilty, because she understands what the process is like. But that's what it is. It's the director's job. I mean, you're working, the only time you're not working is when you're asleep, and you need the sleep,
Absolutely. And you had 6-day weeks as well. Yeah. So there wasn't even, and I'm sure some of your Sunday was sucked up on emails.
You have a lie in on Sunday, and it was like, 11 o'clock, you get up, and then you have to walk the dogs, and then you want to spend the day with your partner and, just have a nice dinner and things. But yeah, there were still emails flying around right, left and centre, and, WhatsApp these days, which is, probably at one stage, I think there was like 14 groups I was involved. And it's just, what about this outfit for this person coming in this day? What about in the ADs going, to move this scene to that? It just doesn't stop. But you need to have someone else in your life who gets that and allows you that freedom over that period of time, knowing that, they have to take the back seat while everything goes into this monster of a sort of project.
Absolutely. And you finished, when did you wrap? February or March?
The last weekend of February, I think it was.
Last weekend of February. So you wrapped it the last week of February, and the film made it to the Galway Film Festival in July.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yellow Moon is the answer. Well, a lot of really hard work and long hours from everybody. There wasn't one person who didn't go beyond what they normally would, especially Greg at Yellow Moon. Whenever we said, right, we've got some good news and bad news, and he was like, what's that? And we're like, it got into Galway, and he was like, brilliant. I was like, no, what's the bad news? I was like, it airs in July. And this was in June when we found out. And that's at that stage we were just literally in the last couple of days of locking the edit. Now, we were very lucky that the closing date for Galway is, it's obviously a couple of months beforehand. And we'd asked them, would they mind watching a rough cut of the movie? And it even had guide music in it. It was music from other movies that I had used in the meantime. And they really liked it. And they took it from this ungraded, unmixed, unscored rough cut.
So is that how you got into the Galway Film Festival then? Showing them a rough cut?
And guaranteeing them that if they liked it and they picked it, that we would have it finished. And then it was Greg at Yellow Moon just basically organising absolutely every element. We still had to do VFX and everything at that stage. And, the colour grade itself, say, hadn't even started, and that's a huge job. We hadn't done an ADR for some of the extra wee lines we needed picked up. And he got all that fitted in 3 weeks. And we delivered to Galway on the Tuesday, and it was screened on the Saturday. So
that's unbelievable. And you said you had a guide track in for music. So what was the process like to get music, the final music in the picture then?
I have worked with the same composer from day one. He is the most uber talented James Everett. And he's another one. I would not do something with him. Music in movies is half the battle. Performance and shots on screen, but the music is your easy way to trigger emotions in an audience. It dictates to your audience what they should feel. I mean, anybody who's watched Oppenheimer this year, that music comes in.
I was just about to say, talk about Oppenheimer. What I've found with music lately in the last 10, 15 years is I've found again a sloppiness in the use of music. So like needle drops where someone puts in a pop music track or whatever.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I think Guardians. I've seen the first one. I thought some of the music in it was fun, But I think in general, a lot of the music, it's not creatively used. It's like, there's somebody goes on a trip to London and London Calling from the Clash plays, and you're just like,
bit obvious.
Come on, So I have found myself, because like Tarantino, Scorsese, all these people really took the needle drop thing to another level, where they're putting pop music in. But these guys, when they put pop music into movies, they took the material to another level, that music.
Well, Tarantino's the genius on that. I mean, there's nobody better than him at selecting those tracks.
And I've found myself getting more drawn towards composers now, because it's original, because you haven't heard the song before a million times. And as you mentioned there with Oppenheimer and Hans Zimmer, and now he's on with a new composer, it just elevates the material to such a level.
I mean, why wouldn't you use a composer? I mean, I know it costs money, but why wouldn't you? Because it's written for your pictures. If I have something big happening on the screen, your composer puts something big in there for you, and really heightens what already worked as a picture. Now it has this drive behind it. It brings it to another level. Maybe it is because of, say, my childhood being brought up with John Williams and all these sort of Spielberg and even Star Wars and stuff. Like, they all had their own themes and they walked in. And to me, a movie needs a score. He needs something to bring it. And that's why Christopher Nolan is somebody I think he is.
He's taken
unworldly.
He's taken the original score thing to another level, hasn't he? With everything, Interstellar, Dunkirk, all these movies. The music just. Especially Oppenheimer, I remember seeing it in the cinema, and the sound just really drew you into the movie.
Seats were shaking.
Yeah,
but that's what I listen to when I'm going through the scripts. I just listen to scores. When I'm driving to set, I just listen to score because I'm trying to get myself in the mood and actually once again thinking of the edit. And this is way back to the days doing Shocked. I used to go walk to the set on Shocked with my headphones in and a mini disc man, listening to tracks, going, this is the track for this scene, because that was a pop music thing. That was a sort of a younger, 20, 30-year-old show thing, sort of 18 to 30s. And I would go listening to tracks for the scene I'm about to shoot, and I would already have a pick before I got to set, go, right. And so I knew I was sort of shooting, knowing that I need this many shots to get the beats for the intro of the song, to set up a thing. And still now, when I read scripts, even for the feature, I was just listening to scores, composers, driving to the set every morning, driving home at night, winged, and I'm still just listening to scores, going, right, oh, that's it now, that's got that emotion I need. So when it comes to the edit, I'll drop that in. And then I have, say, an unbelievable composer who gets it once again. I barely even have to talk to him. We pick up the phone, we say a couple of things, he goes, yeah, that's what I was thinking. And he starts work on things and sends me through elements based on some of the stuff that we talked about and other bits of scores that we liked. And the process starts at that point. Even when we were shooting, he was already starting to send me bits and pieces. So when it came to him really finessing and finalising the score in those last, countdown weeks to Galway, he already had a lot of the score elements written. It was just a matter of him now matching it to the latest edits that we'd done and sort of tweaking things. But it's one of the most creative relationships I have out there. And every single thing I've done, he's that person, and that will continue forever as far as I'm concerned.
I find that it's interesting what you were saying about listen to the scores when you're going to work and different things. Yeah, I find when I'm cutting stuff together and there's something, whatever type of sequence it is, there'll always be some sort of song that I've heard recently. And I just put it on loop all the time whilst I'm cutting that thing together, and it gets you into this sort of rhythm of the way you want to cut the thing together.
That's the editing background, and that is it. And it's partly, once again, back to my TV editing job, where you'll start an edit in the first couple of days, but then I will always spend one day in my first week in whatever job I'm in where I'm just downloading music tracks for the project, because it takes me a day or two to sort of watch the footage and go, right, this is the kind of feeling this show needs. This is it. And then I'll spend a day on, the music libraries, because that's what they all use. And I'm just downloading tracks after tracks after track, making big playlists. And that's what goes into the series, because to me, I can't cut the music. That's the honest kind of truth. I'll do the rough version of it, and then I'll stick down the music track, and then I will cut to those beats, those highlights in the tracks and things. And drama to me is still the same thing. So whenever I hand a piece across to my composer, the edits are all done, to a rhythm. So it's easy for him to go, well, that's a 4/4. I'm going to do the track 4/4 because that's the track I've used underneath. So it makes it a lot easier to work with. But to me, as an editor, I can't just cut silence. I need to have music going underneath it, as I'm even, say, doing the very first assembly rough cut. It's there's a music track there, you know.
As I noticed with your first short, Exposure, it's set in a house in the countryside, in a dark countryside, and it just took me to Lie of the Land. You know, you could see, and it was cool to watch that short and then see Lie of the Land, and you could see that progression in the work. What have you learned about in terms of filmmaking from, say, when you started making shorts to where you got to with the feature?
Being clever with money.
Yes.
Being clever with money and time. And so if we go back to one of my other shorts, that's the kind of the biggest gap. So Exposure was...
It's 2013, wasn't it?
2013, so it was 10 years before I did the feature. And it was a £2,500 budget. So the reason why that was set in a house in the countryside is because we had £2,500 to make a short. Now, granted, kit and things were cheaper back then. Equity rates were slightly lower back then, and everybody was young and enthusiastic and wanting to make something, so that made it easy. But that was because we're going, let's have one set so that we can just be there for 2 days and we just do this short. Now, every short I've done has been 2 days. I've never done anything longer than 2 days. Even Echoes, and this is what I'm getting to, that Echoes is a £20,000 short. Now, that was part of the shorts to feature that NI Screen used to have as a scheme. And the idea behind that is that the writers would go in with feature film, you know, treatment or script, and NI Screen would then give you $20,000 to make a short film based on the feature film, and it would give you development money to develop this script of the feature over a year. So Echoes was 20 grand. So if you're going from something that was 2,500 to 20 grand within, was it 6 years roughly? Everything, all the costs of everything had gone up. So it still was making something in 2 days. We shot that again. It's a 20-minute short film. We shot it in 2 days, and 7,000, just over 7,000 went on the set design for it. So it's, you know, you still only had 13 grand to do everything else, costumes, special effects, you know, music, all that stuff was, and, you know, obviously your DOP costs from the camera and things like that. So it was still down to the feature film now. How can I be clever with what I put on screen to get the most value out of every penny that we have? And every short I ever made, I never took any payment for edit or for the directing or anything. Echoes, I was up painting the set myself. I put it up as well. I helped the set builder, you know, hold up the boards and do that. And we filmed it at Bangor Tech. I asked, would their film class come down and help me paint it? You know, and it's
right.
and that's never changed to me. That's been there from the Stirling days where we had to do everything and make our own blood for these, you know, crime reconstructions back in 2007, 2008 to now this feature film now. I was still bringing up props and, you know, things like that, because you have to put every single penny onto the screen. I always want to make something that looks better than the money you have for it. Now, you're in a slightly sort of precarious area when you do that, because sometimes the money only give you enough for a story to be so good, but I'm trying to make it look better. And so maybe the story doesn't stretch to the level that you're aiming for visually. But I think that's the thing I've never changed. And it's only got better and instilled in me over the years, from Exposure right through to Lie of the Lands. It's like, let's push everything onto screen. Let's spend every penny we can making this look a higher budget than it actually is.
Well, interesting you say there about, because the first, I watched Lie of the Lands in the Galway Film Festival, and it's great. And the first thing that struck me about it was, because I had a rough ballpark idea, the budget in my head was, this looks like you spent a lot more money on it than what was actually spent. And the cinematography looked great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You know, and it's such a big challenge to shoot at night. So Jenny was your DOP, yeah?
Yeah.
So she would have had to get very creative with how she was going to light it, because she wasn't going to get machines everywhere. She wasn't going to be able to light the entire... You didn't have the budget for that.
No.
But the show still looked great.
Yeah,
you know?
and you know, there's a few sort of elements to that. Whenever I did my interview for the film itself, my whole pitch was to do with the light. It's all about the shadows and the light, and that's kind of where the idea stemmed from. And then I always had, you know, a fascination with Children of Men and the look of that film, because it's bleak. But there are also use of fluorescence and horrible greens and horrible oranges and things like that. I loved all that. Jenny came in to do her interview and showed me visual references of ideas she had after reading the script that had those almost the same pictures that I use in my pitch doc she had in hers. And I was like, we're on the same page.
So that's brilliant, isn't it?
And we spent the day, in fact, it was the day afterwards, day after our interview. Now, I'd spoken to other DOPs who are amazing. And in fact, one who I've worked with many, many years, Mark Macaulay, and he is, once again, my go-to. But Jenny came in and just put these pictures in front of me that went, that's exactly what I've envisaged this film to look. And then the very next day I rang her. It was sort of like a post-interview really. And I spent 3 hours on the phone with her. And we just talked about movies, we talked about looks and things like that. And I went, she's really passionate about this. So she understood where I wanted to take this visually, which was very stylistically and dark and say, visceral at times, and don't be afraid of bold colours. So when we finally found our set over the Christmas holidays, we had a look at all the outhouses around our farmland and came up with this idea. Let's put in sort of wee lights above the doors directly from Children of Men influence, having these sort of pops of colour. So whenever we're shooting and you're up against it, shooting at nighttime outdoors, that if we ever really totally pushed, we could move the action into these areas that have the lights above them and shoot the action underneath it. And it would be a really harsh overhead light, but it would look cool because it's there intentionally and there's a harsh moment happening anyhow. So she just got it from day one and, delivered on every single aspect. And it wasn't easy, to film something and make it look that good beyond your budget.
And a cool thing is, if you're working with a low budget, a good way to light sometimes is having a variety of pracs in the shot.
Yeah.
So that you're establishing a source. Mm-hmm. And then when you're looking away from it, then you can add a light in that augments that. So those cool pracs dotted around the farmyard where you had motivation for where you could put lights. Yeah. Which was smart from a money perspective. It was, I suppose, it gives you time, as it
gives you depth as well. It makes the shots richer. And again, that was in my original pitch doc from interview, was I love practical lights in films. I love having, every single lampshade, I wanted different colours in the house and things like that. We worked in sort of smart elements using old retro torches and things like that, all to do with the light and the harshness and shadows and things like that. Everything was based on that the whole time. And I just love practical lights and stuff. It speeds you up when you're shooting fast, but it also, gives you texture and depth in your shots. And, by making that lampshade red, is there an element of danger coming in? There's sort of wee things like that just, it all ties in.
You talked briefly there about echoes, the short, and you brushed over the set construction. When I watched the short Echoes, that was the first thing that when I watched that, I went, wow, in terms of production value in something so small. Yeah. And the whole thing was set in the one set. But for a short film, how did that all come about? You spoke briefly about where it was made, but you made it for what, 7,000? That seems like nothing.
The set for 7,000, yeah. So the entire short.
That's what I mean. The construction was 7,000. That seems like nothing.
I know. That's it is nothing when you look at it. And it was one of those things again. I had Louise Gallagher. I had the honour to have her as my producer on that, and we had somebody who was our set designer on, and they had to take another job, as it is on these shorts. Shorts pay very little, and somebody else got offered a 3-week gig and had to disappear. And this was, a matter of a month before we had to actually shoot this thing. And I phoned around a lot of people, and it was Leon Fee who actually put me to this guy called Stephen Bamford, who makes sets for the Lyric. So he just, he's a set builder. And I met Stephen and went through my designs of what I wanted this to look like. My whole theme for Echoes was hexagonals. and it's everywhere. It's in the logo, it's in the name, so the set's hexagonal. So I had all these elements kind of drawn out and sketched of what I wanted to look like. And Stephen went away, sent me through 2 days later this sort of design he'd based on this. And he went, I can build that for you. And, I can do it within the budget you have, which is minuscule, to such an extent that I was going, well, see, when you're coming up to actually build it, I'll go up and help you. And we grouped in like students from Bangor Tech to help us, just even carrying the boards in from the van and stuff like that, because it was, buttons to make something that good. Now, it all worked out brilliantly, because Bangor Tech, we found this space basically that worked for us in Bangor Tech. It's their production offices, and then they have a little recording room off it. So that is the set for Echoes. So we built our hexagonal sort of train inside one, and then the doorway through is actually the doorway that goes into their recording booth. So the window in Echoes is the recording booth window in Bangor Tech. And, once we found the space, we were able to get, Stephen came up with these magical plans to use every single inch of that. And then it was just all hands on deck. And so even my partner, she was up, painting. I went around scrapyards getting things to hang off the ceilings, and anytime, even walking the dogs one day, there was a big roll of sort of wire mesh, and I just put it under my arm, walked along, and I used that to cover the windows and things. Just going, you have to make these things, with no money. Basically, the way you have to look at it.
So where did you done it at the Bangor Tech? Did you say?
Yeah, Bangor Tech.
And they had just a shed type room for you to build.
Yeah,
this
it
thing
was kind of their media department. They've got 2 media rooms that have a recording space and then a sort of booth for doing their mixing and things like that, so they can use it for music or for film. But they have 2 of them side by side. So we used one as the green room, and the one on the other side was our space train.
That's fantastic. It's a very creative way of using space like that. It's great.
But that's what you have to sort of go in with ideas in your head in order to pull something like this off. And it worked out then that Bangor Tech said, do you mind if we just hold on to this so we can let our students use it for their short films? And I said, work away. Because then, that means we didn't have to incur the cost of hiring a skip and dismantling and crew and stuff. So we were just like, that saved us a few £100, plus gave their students, a real life set to sort of come up with their own wee, sci-fi stories.
And then the costume design as well. So you got all them made. When I see all these, I just see money. Normally in a short you would beg, borrow type, different clothes and locations, and
there's still elements of that. It is heavily influenced by Alien, and the writers love Alien, so do I. So going for the jumpsuit in space is kind of slightly obvious choice, but it's cheap and effective because the audience just take it. So we have to fight the battles that are worth fighting, and if you know that this costume can be a $6.99, boiler suit that you can get from eBay, then let's use that. And then I designed the logos that go onto it, and our costume designer got those printed up by get them stitched out. So it's like, you throw everything you can at the big elements, and then where you can save any kind of pennies on the other side, that's what you do. And if you have to get your hands dirty doing it. But what you get as a result of it is a film that looks a lot better than the budget, once again, I think personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I saw it showing in the Belfast Film Festival, I was sitting there and, they don't know who you are when you're sitting in the audience. It's kind of weird. That could go either two ways at times, I'm not going to lie. But I heard of some people behind go, that looks amazing. And I was like, thank God. That's it. That's all you want for the audience to understand that it looks good.
And you can see the Alien inspiration, Is it something you want to develop? Was that a shorts to feature?
That was a shorts to feature, and the feature film was written, and it was really, really good, and I would love to make it. We had it provisionally budgeted at the time, and it was coming up as 2.5 million odds.
Yeah.
At which point I just knew straight away, I was going, well, that would be my first feature, and there's no way that they'll give a first time director, £2.5 million budget to make a movie like that. So it just went into a drawer. But it's still sitting there, and I would love to make that at some stage if the 2 writers were still.
The thing is, you've got a great short there to showcase what you can do with it. Which is a huge plus if you want to get something like that off the ground.
And most of that scheme that shorts to features, people kind of did a scene from the film, or a condensed version of the actual feature. What we decided to do was, let's make a prequel. So this would be a standalone. This would be the DVD extra, if anybody's willing to buy it. But we based the story going, let's go bring it back a few years earlier and develop a story that would lead into the feature. So it still shows off our world and our emotions and our feelings for, what this world is and, the danger that can come out of something. But let's not give away the actual story of the film itself.
There's another thing that jumped out was on Echoes, the SFX and the VFX. Mm-hmm. So the use of smoke and there's subtle VFX stuff like things on iPads and all, which was really good. Yeah. And someone putting their hand over it. And again, I was looking at that going, it's a subtle thing, but I just know from experience that could end up looking like dog shit. It could be a nightmare to do something like that. There's keyframing involved there, or maybe it was a green screen or whatever you put. So, how is the VFX, SFX type process there?
Well, there's an opening shot in Echoes, and we had Street Monkey do that for us. And it was just a huge favour, really, at the end of the day, because they wanted to get into films, and they were like, we'll do this for you. We'll make it look as good as we possibly can and won't really charge you anything. So it was just a come together of people who just wanted to make something good. And they did a brilliant job. They came up with the whole idea of what the train looked like from the outside. And then when it came to the iPad stuff and things like that, that was from a guy who I'd worked with for years in 360 Production. And I'd use him as well in one of my other short films, The Way Back. There's a whole big digital screen. And he is just a sort of graphic guy for television who does, if you're having something in a TV program, there's a map and there's a wee line goes across the map. That's what he does. And he's just a wizard on After Effects and stuff. So I just went, can you do this? Once again, pulling in favors. And luckily, I brought in a lot of TV people to that, even people who do the sound mixes, are people who normally would do TV things. But I've known them from the TV companies that I've worked in, so I just went like, would you mind doing the sound mix in this for buttons? And they're like, yeah, no worries.
And I noticed the sound mix on Echoes, you could see progress in it from your early shorts. I thought the sound design was really good. And then obviously it goes into Lie of the Land as well. How important is sound capture for you when you're making? Because from your editing background how detrimental to a project shit sound is.
Yeah. Are we going to go there on this? Sound is majorly important. I've luckily had relationships with some of the best soundies out there over the years and people I would just go back to all the time. But the sound design, again, is something that's hugely important to me because sound design is storytelling. It's, Lie of the Land, we did an ADR with our actors and, half the ADR was just breath, because I wanted to feel like we're kind of claustrophobic with them when things are happening, that we hear their breathing. And, it's sort of adding those kind of layers into something, just heightens the tension, just heightens your storytelling. And in Echoes, again, getting your lovely clean sound of dialogue on set is great, but everything else that's added in, it's layers and layers of storytelling devices. You'll have in echoes in the background, which is bringing in the name, or somebody shouting off screen. We were filming on a set that's made out of wood, yet I wanted to look like a train, so I added sort of echo effects onto some of the dialogue because when they're shouting from distance, because it should be bouncing and reverberating off metal, but it wasn't because we were in a lovely condensed wooden shell. It was acoustically beautiful. So it's things like that. You have to sort of always think of the bigger picture quite literally and go, how can I make this sound match what we need to do story wise?
There's in your work there's like an impending doom type of feel in a lot of your work. How do you relay that visually?
I don't know.
Is it in the script before?
It is. And specifically the projects that I'm drawn to are things that are dark. When I read the script of Lie of the Land, there is an impending doom there. And when I got to the end of that, I was going, I want to make this. Now I've read some of the other scripts over the years and didn't particularly think, well, it's not my story to tell. That's somebody else's. Not saying that they're not good stories, but it's just something that doesn't attract me. And that's just something that's always been present in all my storytelling because it's something I love. I mean, there's a writer an actual novel writer, Guy de Maupassant, I used to study in university. And all of his stories are tragic. They're always twisted, tragic ends that are just horrible. And I just love that. I love when you don't see... I don't like the happy end. I like something that tortures your audience a little bit, keeps you interested, and can leave you at the end, sort of like with some kind of question mark. Not that my films don't have endings. They do. Definitively, it's a huge element of my filmmaking, but I just love that journey of... that's life. Lots of us have things in your life that sort of are impending over you and stresses and anxieties, and I just love that in film.
And sometimes the endings of something, if they're tied up in a bow that's too neat, it sort of loses credibility and the audience then doesn't believe it. Would that be fair?
It's more sort of naturalistic. That's kind of how things play out. And it's probably stemming from a film that I watched when I was quite young. It was the first time my mum let me watch an 18 film that wasn't an 18. I think so. I think that's correct. And it was The Changeling. And it's a 1981 horror film. And that scared the bejesus out of me. And it was all psychological horror, but it was all impending doom. The whole film of that, even the sound effects, it's always like something's coming to get you. And that film is the only film that's ever scared me in my entire life, and it scared the crap out of me. Still, when I watched there even last year, it scared me again. And there's something about that affected me that I was going, no other horror has ever done that, and really made me like Blair Witch had those touches in it, but it never hit me the way that film did. And I've just always been fascinated the way that story was told, and I kind of look for stories that have that kind of feeling to them. Something's gone wrong with me. That film starts with his wife and his daughter being killed, and this man's left standing alone. That's how the movie starts, and it kind of gets darker from that. My favorite film I mentioned earlier is Requiem for a Dream. I mean, that is impending doom and then some, and ends just with tragedy. But that's the things that attract me. That's the stories that make me get interested.
What was the collaboration process like with the screenwriter on Lie of the Land? Does much change? Do you get involved with things that change? And I'm talking about even from like a practical sense, because I'm sure things go through the prep process where it looks good on the page, but the practicalities of shooting that aren't achievable.
Yeah, you have to be in... have a relationship with your writer that goes both ways, and you both trust each other. And I think that's vital. We talked throughout. We made notes. We sent things back. We had good discussions on the phone. And God, she was brilliant to work with. She was just always willing to discuss and, and fight, sort of like, not in a bad way, but, sort of have these battles going like, I don't think I can afford this thing. What else can we do? My idea is this. And she's like, I don't like that idea, but I'll work on something that will give us the same thing. And that's how these things have to work. I'll give you one instance where we had a scene originally in the script, and this is right up to, I think we might have even been filming at the stage. There was a scene where one of our characters has to kill a chicken. Now, the practicalities of filming somebody killing a chicken are really hard. You'd have to pick up a live chicken and cut to a dummy chicken, but the fake chickens were costing a fortune, and it's one shot in the film. But I knew it was really important because it shows that this character could make ruthless decisions when needs be, and has that inside of her, has that kind of, power to make those decisions like that. But it was just going to cost too much. So once again, phone calls, and we came up with an idea that, well, maybe she could just hit a rat and squish a rat with a spade. It still shows, that sort of quick little crack moment that I could be a different person, and then back to what she was doing. So that's how we had to change it.
It's amazing that though, isn't it? And that would hopefully be a good insight for people, in that something like that you wouldn't even think twice about, and it's a budget concern. A dead chicken.
Yeah, I spent probably 2.5 hours of my life discussing that dead chicken over the space of 2 weeks. And I mean, it would have been over in a, say,
KFC. You didn't get in touch with KFC. You get
no.
There's plenty of chickens.
God, we tried everything. We thought of it. We thought of whatever. What can we do? And they say there's just this one place that does these great looking chickens, because the chickens we even had in the film as a start were a special breed. So it was even harder to get the replica one. So yeah, you have a writer that's willing to work with you on things like that, that come up last second while we're filming, and I'm going, the production go, let's just cut it. And I'm going, but I understood the importance of that moment. And I was like, no, we need to keep it, but we can't afford the chicken. Okay, let's work it out. I'll go and find the writer, and we have a chat, and then she came up with this, well, what about a rat?
Ali White, who is in the film, you must not like her, do you?
I don't know if she likes me now.
She was put through the ringer on that, wasn't she?
She was, yeah.
Did she know what she was getting into before she did it, and
yes.
how passionate she was, and then she was just passionate the whole way through to tell this story?
Yes, she did know what she was getting herself into. They all read the script. They saw how physical the role could be. That sort of brings us back to another point about the script as well, that originally in the very first version of the script, our characters would have been much older, but there was no way that we could cast somebody that old to do sort of the action elements that we needed, so we had to cast younger. And that was a decision made, across the board by everybody in advance, because we just knew we don't have long to cast, and we have to find people who are willing and physically fit enough to do these roles. And I think actually all of them were put through the ringer, but yeah, she did have a tough time, crawling through roof spaces and walking around in the dark, and other key moments that I don't want to reveal quite yet. But yeah, I think that the cast were incredible and so willing. We had Lemmy Black as our stunt coordinator, and he came up the week before we were shooting and brought the cast up, and we had a day and we worked through some of the major key scenes of their physical, scenes and things like that. And, they were loving it. They were laughing their heads off. And, as Nigel getting flung on top of a mat, Ali's laughing her head off. And then as she's getting flung on a mat, Nigel's laughing his head off. It was great fun. It was all done professionally. But you could see that they were going, oh, this is great. I can't wait to do that scene for real. But we had we had loads of measures in place that we had, soft floors and things like this, so that we try to make it as comfortable as possible, because some of the scenes are tough. But apart from that, Ali had it tough, and she was just game for it. Not once did she go, oh, I don't know, or I can't do that again. She was like, sorry, do you mind we do another take? Just need to get out. Not a problem.
Brilliant. And
smiling in between all the takes, and then obviously I'm not going to take the hand out of it. I'll make sure that I'm not going to do 100 takes on something like that when there's action elements. But it's all so precise beforehand.
Well, you mentioned there having a stunt coordinator involved. It's all rush, making something like this, isn't it? But at the end of the day, and this is where you put a lot of work into prep, and this all comes up in prep. If you have any sort of anything, like especially at night time when you have fights or whatever, health and safety is just imperative, isn't it? Of keeping the crew safe, keeping the cast safe, so they don't fall over, break their ankle or whatever. And anything can happen,
Like when we went through the script at the start, you kind of read the script and you go, right, oh, this is a really good story, and then you don't realise how many, in quotes, stunts there are. There's loads of them. Even like a gunshot or just somebody swinging their arm, it's a stunt. And when you're up against it time-wise, and you've got a stunt day coming where there's a bit of a fight or something, you know that you have to schedule that light. So that's why some of those stunt scenes, we had to film over 4 nights, because you had to spend time. And I knew, we'll only shoot the first quarter of this scene tonight, because we'll spend 2 hours rehearsing it with the stunt coordinator. And it's vital. It actually gives you ideas, because as he's working through the motions, I'm running around looking, working out what lens I need for different angles in order to cover it the right way. But it's, that's 2 hours well spent. It's when the camera's not rolling, but it makes it better on screen.
What I've found is, from my experience working in the film industry, is stunt guys can bring a lot of value to the table, not just in terms of the fight, but I remember any really big budget movies that have action involved, generally speaking, the second unit is a stunt unit.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the director in a stunt unit is an ex-stunt guy.
Yeah.
because they've done that many stunts over the years that they can give you. Sometimes you might have having all the shot list planned of a fight, and then you see the fight manifest itself, and it's not practical to shoot it that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of stunt guys have great ideas for how to shoot something. For example, like John Wick, the guy that made that's an ex-stunt guy, I think, isn't he? So, you know, they bring so much value to the table, and I think it's important to be open-minded of,
big time.
you know, the key, what they can do is it's all well and good having different shots in your head and what way you want to shoot it. But sometimes they can give you an injection of, this is what will make it look like a fight.
Yeah.
And sometimes a shot that you have it could work as a shot, but it won't make the fight believable.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it's complete sense, and it's the truth. They are the only scenes that I didn't come in, fully prepared to shoot. As in, I knew what I needed from those scenes as a story. I knew where I wanted it to take place visually, and sort of what kind of coverage I would need. But that's why whenever he was doing the rehearsals, going through it, that's when I went round, using my phone as the frame, going, right, this is the best place to capture that. Because if, and even in the script, it says that there's a fist fight. But then the stunt coordinator goes, it'd be much better if they picked up something and hit them over the head. Yeah, of course it would, And that's their input, because that's their expertise. And it only heightens and improves what is already there. So there's no point in me planning. I mean, I shot listed these things, but I didn't, even though they were stunts, I didn't storyboard anything, because I was going, there's no point, because it will develop. And they always did. And I just spent that time just listening and working with them and going, actually, can we end up, see that punch? It'd be better if we can get the actor to react where they end over this way, because to me, there's a better backdrop for the way the fight ends. And then Lemmy would go, okay, we'll do some mad headlock and flip a leg, and next thing they're over there. Brilliant, And so you're working with them, and it just becomes a really creative, fun process where you're now developing something, and then I'm running around with the phone around them, sort of even filming it on my phone and then sort of watching it back and going, I can get 3 shots from that angle, but I'm missing that punch, so I'll have to get something from the other side, blah, blah, blah. But you're doing that over that 2-hour period. Everything else, anytime there's dialogue, that is storyboarded in my head to a T. This stuff is... It moves, these stunt scenes kind of expand or shrink with whatever's needed, and that's all done with your stunt coordinator and the cast and what they're comfortable in doing.
John Kinsella's brilliant in the film. How did the casting process come about there?
We had quite a few tapes for that character, and I watched his self-tape, and I said, that's him. And it was, honest to God, it was as simple as that. To the point where I just text the producers that very moment and went, he's Shepherd. And when I finally got to sort of speak with him on the phone and then chat with him the week before when he came up to get his costume costume fitting, I was able to sort of go through the story with him. He had a slightly different take on his character to what I had, but they married up visually. He had a different kind of backstory and what his aim as that character would be. Mine differed, but it didn't matter, because from that moment of where that night that film takes place in, then they matched that night. There was still going to be the same outcome for his story on that night. So he was a dream to work with. And another type of actor again, where I have Nigel, who I can go and sort of say 2 or 3 wee words to, and we just get it. Barry likes to have discussions, and we chat about things, and we talk about where the character should be emotionally, things like that. And to me, that excites me just as much as it does where I can just go, Nigel, we need such and such. And he goes, no bother. Well, no, Barry, we'll get into a nice chat, and we'll sort of go to a slightly different level in our conversations, because that's his method. And I like that. I like the fact that even in one scene, I could have 2 or 3 different conversations with my cast, completely different even agendas. But I knew that what the aim was going to turn out the same. The performances were going to marry from those discussions. And Barry's he's brilliant. He nailed it every go. And this is another thing people don't really talk about, but you have actors like him that their continuity is perfect. And no matter what, he would he's not even aware, because he just sort of reacts rather than acts. In my opinion, he's one of those guys. He can be chatting and laughing, and then I go, right, action, and he just turns into his character. But he'll put the cup in the same angle, the same way every take, and he's not even aware that he's doing it, because he just becomes the character. And a few times I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, he's intimidating. He's a scary character, and I just thought his performance was brilliant.
Yes,
I turned around to my producer one night and went, "This should get an IFTA." I think he should be nominated for an IFTA. I think he's brilliant.
The Silence Between was a short film you did, and it was a bit of a change in direction in terms of genre, style, different things. Yeah, where did the idea of that come from?
That came from me not getting jobs. If I'm going to be truthful about this, I had a couple of auditions for other projects, sort of TV dramas, and they were, "Oh, but you just make genre, so you're not right for it." And I was like, "But I can tell other stories." To me, a storyteller is a storyteller. I can have an interest in a certain type of film, but I still think that if you're a good storyteller and you have the right crew around you, you can make a story.
But that happens across the board in all departments. Writers, editors, they all get typecast into actors, obviously. They all get typecast into a specific thing. I remember there was an editor I was talking to on Game of Thrones, and this is years ago. He was an editor in comedy, and he wanted to do drama, and he couldn't get any drama gigs. So he had to drop back down to be an assistant editor in drama and then work his way back up again.
And I just think that side of our industry is questionable. There's a lot of talented people out there who can change their approach to jobs, but we kind of get pigeonholed quite a lot. And I was told specifically after one interview in particular that you were way more experienced than anybody else we interviewed, and we love you, but you make horror, so we have to give to the person who's done one drama. And you're like, and I just went, I'm going to make a drama.
Well, that's clever then for your career. Then it just gives you more options, doesn't it?
So I made 2 drama shorts in a row. Then just going, I'm going to have to open my talents into that side, just to go, listen, look, I can make drama too. Just straight drama. And The Silence Between is just a beautiful little story. It's a simple story, but it's got a kind of powerful message to it. And
the acting was great in that short. It was really good with the teacher and the kid and different things like that. And it was great. It was very visual the way you told that story.
Yeah, and that's down to, again, having a crew and a cast that agreed with what that story was to the vision I had. And Rosie as our lead role as a teacher, she just worked on set like she was his teacher, and the rapport she had with our young actor was just brilliant. They were playing the piano together, in the rooms when we were off filming other elements, and she was sort of working through wee scenes with him like that. Joel is our lead actor, is the kid, and he's a drummer. In his audition, he sent me this part in his audition tape with him playing the drums. I want someone with rhythm for this. I want someone who understands the rhythm, because that movie is actually the whole opening to it is cut to the beat, and as the story unfolds, the rhythm changes. And with the score, and this was all done, say, with my composer before we even picked up a camera, that the beat changes to the movie. Even his pace, his footsteps fall out of rhythm, and then at the end they're all back into rhythm again. And he went away and learnt the trumpet. And the trumpet that we hired for the actual shoot, we got it delivered to him a couple of weeks beforehand, and he went on to YouTube videos and learned. He didn't have to be good at it. That's the thing, because the whole point is that the kid is starting to learn the trumpet. Yeah. But I don't know about you, but I picked up the trumpet and nothing came out. It was just air and wind, and I was like, Jesus.
There's only one trumpet I've ever played. It's not this pole as the other one.
So that shows, even as a kid that age, that he was willing to do that, because he knew that's what was needed for the story and for his character. And I was just like, that's impressive.
So what was it like when you wrapped on Lie of the Land? It was the last day. What's the last shoot day like when you turn up the set?
Well, we were very lucky. So we had this contingency then that our last day was going to be light. So we had just had a couple of sort of daylight shots to shoot. So our call time was still, we still turned over at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but we really only had a couple of sort of like GVs and things they pick up that stage because luckily we had everything covered. So we actually had a lovely, relaxed afternoon. The sound department went off and recorded Atmos tracks for me. The camera department went across and, did GVs and, gave some of the trainees shots. So some of the shots in the movie are trainee camera operators who was their first time on a big camera like that, and, brilliant. And while it was happening, I was working with Lemmy and the cast on the whole setup for the ending of the movie. That was our backup scene that if we needed to drop it, we could have and slotted something else in. So it was a great day. It was a lovely day until we shot our first couple of shots and the moon went out, as in our lights went. The electricity went in the house. We didn't know when it was going to come back on. So even though we had rehearsed everything to T, including every single camera position to cover the entire thing, because we just wanted to wait till it got dark, which is about sort of 6:30, and then shoot till 11 on this big action sequence. And then our moonlights went out and we luckily got them back an hour later. But even within that hour, I was then redesigning how we'd shoot the stuff and try and use just, handheld lamps to represent the moon. But it's an outdoor scene, so it would have been difficult. And luckily 1 hour later, the gaffer was able to get the lights back on again, which meant then the rest of the night was a panic. It was like, I was like, right, next shot, next shot, and just running around again.
It's always the way on a film set, I find, is when you're going in and you think, it's job done, it's a breeze, and next thing, out of nowhere, shit hits the fan.
Yeah. And I had one shot left, which wasn't, this is where the AD kills you on things, I guess. I had one shot in my mind that isn't in the script, that wasn't a scene number. And I went, I want to shoot this one shot where I have two cast members standing in front of the house, which then actually became an image that was used even in our publicity now. But I wanted to shoot that. But we had a big action sequence, and I planned this shot because I go, well, look, we're doing this big action sequence, and we have it all rehearsed, so we'll have a bit of time left. So I have a couple of bonus shots up my sleeve for tonight. Once we finish that, we can just finish off with these shots. We had to ask for 15 minutes grace from the crew because we'd lost this hour earlier on, and the crew, once again, brilliant. We didn't have to play that card awful lot at all, thank God, because we always got our timings right on the days. But we just finished the action sequence at like 1 minute to 11, and we ran over and got this one extra bonus shot that I really wanted. I thought it was going to be an important part of the film, and that's what we finished on that shot, and it looked amazing, and it was just euphoric. Once we shouted wrap, everybody was in great form and high-fiving and hugs and kisses all around. It was such a buzz.
And was it just a big release, this big weight off your shoulder whenever you wrapped? Because there's nothing more satisfying than it's in the can, and post-production, it isn't the same. Now you've got deadlines, and obviously you had the whole Galway thing, but it becomes a bit more manageable, I think, when it's you, say, execs, producers, and an editor, rather than you go on set and you've got so many moving parts, and there's so much that could go wrong, and you get it in the can. There must have been some sense of relief, was there?
Of course it always is, because you ultimately have the responsibility on your shoulders that in 18 days you have to deliver a film. At the end of it, you have to have everything in the can that makes this movie. And if it didn't happen, well, I would be the first one to get blamed, but that's the nature of it. That's the responsibility you take, and that's the reason why, we do it and we work hard on it. But when you got there at the other end, and it honestly is, it's just like you sink into the ground, like train spot, and it's just like, we did it, and I say we did it because it takes everybody to push themselves as best they possibly can, as far as they can, to get to that moment. And it's so rewarding when you know that we have it. It is finished, and there's nothing. I'm not going to regret anything. Going, I can't believe I had to drop that scene. No, that didn't happen to us. Thank God we got every scene that we needed to, that we planned to shoot was done. And the next couple of days, I took 2 days off, and the whole world just turns on because it's just so quiet. I'm just like, it feels so strange.
It's weird. I had it when I done the Taxi Joe web series last year, and we put it out in the cinema, and there was a crazy rush to get it into the cinema for Christmas and put it out online and different things. But everything was to the wire, and it was like, I remember getting the package ready for the cinema. It was just round the clock trying to get the whole thing working and all. But then once it was all over, I was just like, what am I going to do with myself now?
Yeah.
There was this thing, because it was such an intense part of your life. Once it's gone, there was a bit of me. It's the first time I ever felt where it's like, what am I going to do with myself now? You know?
I mean, I went back onto the set. So we wrapped on a Saturday night, and I took the Sunday and Monday off just to sort of just get my head back to normal. I went up to set on Tuesday, and we already had Baloo taking away the toilets and stuff like that. They were on their way out. And it actually made me sad. I was sitting going, God, the production office are coming down. The toilets are disappearing on us. You know, our production office as such, you know, which was the whole set to me. It was just starting to disappear in front of you. The props the paintings were off the wall. And it's like...
It's a weird sensation, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like back in the day whenever Big Brother was still good, and that last episode, they do this wee echoey part where it shows you all the rooms with the echoes of all the people who were in it. Yeah. And that's what it felt like. I could still see the scenes there, but where every wall and doorway was, you know, a part of a story to me, at that stage then, it was just back to somebody's house. And it was just really strange. So you go off from this huge high on a Saturday night, it's, you know, 12 p.m, and you go home, and I mean, me and my girlfriend, we sat up till like 5 that morning just talking, because it's the first time I was able to do it, and was still buzzing the whole time, because he came up to set for the last, you know, couple of hours, and we're just buzzing and chatting and chatting and chatting, and then just silence on the Monday and Tuesday, and just leaving. I went up to set just to collect some of the other props that I'd brought up, and it was just a shell, and I was like, where's the catering? Where's my AD? Why is he not pestering me, you know?
In a weird sense, it looked like it happened years ago or something. Yeah. And it was only like 2 days beforehand or something like that. It
completely changes just in a matter of hours. It's like a football stadium, you know, 15 minutes after the game ends, the place is empty, and it just doesn't have the same, you know, power that it did. And it's just that same thing. And it's, I mean, I had actually a couple of the members of the crew would, I would just come and do this again next week and start all over again for 3 weeks, you know, take a couple of days off and do it again. I was the exact same. I would do it right again straight away.
It's a great sensation, isn't it? You know, to make something like that. But it, you know, it doesn't come along every day, you know, and then you've got to be grateful and have gratitude for that opportunity to have come along, because when you don't have it, you just realize, wow, that was such a great experience.
I know. And then, I mean, I'm at the stage now where I'm going, what will my next project be? And that could take, you know, if it was another feature, which is what I would like to do. I have a few scripts sitting there now, and one in particular I really, really like. But, I mean, let's be honest, that could take 3 years before that's into production, because that's the way this works. So it's like, what am I going to do in the next 3 years where I can't, you know, live those moments again that I had back in February?
Absolutely. You won Best Irish Debut feature film at the Galway Film Festival. What was that whole experience like?
Amazing. Totally amazing. Unexpected, only because we were such a whirlwind. That I say, we only delivered it on a Tuesday and it was shown on a Saturday night in Galway.
Absolutely.
Whenever Galway told us we were in, you know, we have Yellow Moon working around the clock, getting everything finished to perfection. Like, amazing. And then we got told we're on the 7:30 Saturday night slot in their main theatre. And that's when it hits you going, you know, crap, like this, the pressure's on now. And then we're told that it's sold out, and you're like, okay. And then you're told that you have to go up and introduce it, and that they want to do a Q&A with you afterwards. And it all, everything changes, because to me, I'm just a director who makes films and enjoys the storytelling part. And then whenever it goes on screen, you do get nervous when you're sitting there, because you always see the flaws, even though other people won't notice. There's things you go, oh, you know, why is that not like that, in the back of your mind. But when I went to Galway, even just the people who run that festival,
I love it. Always
the most welcoming people ever. When I went up to introduce the film, the guy that handed me the mic, this is how I describe my whole experience. He handed me the mic and said, "There you go, to go up and introduce your film." And when I came off and handed it back, he said, "You did a great job there." And that's it in a nutshell. That's why they are. They're so supportive of you. everybody comes up to you and it's just,
there's a great
really
community,
positive.
great community vibe down there. I would highly recommend anyone go to the Galway Film Festival if they're interested in films or they want to break into filmmaking or whatever.
Yeah.
Going with the standards are great too. The short films they show are fantastic. The people there are it's a great city. It's just a fun city, isn't it?
And no matter, even when we went to different pubs afterwards, after we won the award on the Sunday night, I went in and just to say a total random bar, 2 miles down the road, people going, "Oh, did you get an award in the festival?" I was like, "Yeah," and showed them the award. That's brilliant. That's well done. And that's just people who weren't even up at the award ceremony or who have a filmmaking. They're just just general punters, and that's the way. It's a real serious sense of community for that festival, and the fact that you go to the boat club afterwards, and everybody who makes films is there, and you just go around chatting, and I've never liked that side of our industry where there's rap parties and stuff where then you go and people go, "Oh, it was great work with you," and all, because I always find that awkward. I'm not, socially built that way where I can boast about stuff that I've done or things like that. So I find those sort of conversations kind of awkward because they expect you to talk about yourself. And I always go, "No, I just want to make a movie. I want to be like Darren Aronofsky where he makes something and you never see him in an interview." That's the thing that I would love to do. But Galway completely changed that for me because they helped me along so much and give me so much confidence. And people just, people who run the festival, people who were in the audience, these two elderly ladies came up to me after the film outside and just said, "We really loved that. We were on the edge of our seats. It's the best film we've seen in Galway in a couple of years." And that meant more to me than any kind of IMDb review or things like that.
Yeah.
Because they were really genuine. I could tell that that's what they meant. And that's what Galway does to you. It changed the way that I think about, doing the side of the job where you have to then present yourself to the world as a filmmaker rather than just presenting your film.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to anybody if they're looking to get into filmmaking?
Learn how to edit.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if that was the one thing I could say, it would be that.
It's so accessible now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Editing. And I would anybody that wants to get into directing or filmmaking, I would strongly advocate getting into editing because but even when it's not even just editing, it's all the departments. Because when you're editing, you see the flaws with everything.
Yeah.
You see where lighting issues could come in. And then obviously with sound, because you're so susceptible to sound when you're editing.
Yes.
That on set you see the value of good sound. So many times on set I would see people disregard sound a little bit because they're so under pressure to complete their day.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this is really important to get clean audio here because you want clean, crisp audio as much as possible because it's such a vital part of the process. But then every element, you'll see hair and makeup even. If you're an editor, you see where you see hair and makeup flaws.
Yeah, you do see the flaws. Like when I first came into this industry, when I went to uni, the aim was I want to be a director. So I'll learn how to edit because I'll find out what pictures you need to make the story. Then I'll do camera because now I know what pictures you need. I'll learn how to make them. And then I'll move into directing. And that's exactly what I did. That was the path I chose. That, nobody told me to do that, but it was just, to me, that made sense. It was just logic. And even from learning the edit side of things, when I went out and started doing the camera work for the TV company I was with, when I went back, the editor would say to me, going, and I love this, was going, "You should have let them leave frame. I needed them to walk out a shot. I needed them to close that door. You cut that camera just 2 seconds too early." Never done that ever again the rest of my life. But that's learning from the edit. And I think we're unfortunately at a stage now, sometimes where directors don't even get into edits, for TV land things. So they never see what their flaws are. They don't get to have those conversations like that I had, that help that I had to go, don't do that again, because you see every flaw in the edit, because that's when it's all revealed. If it's not working, there's a reason it's not working. And as you say, it could be many elements.
Absolutely. The best learning ground is in post.
Yeah.
Because you've got the time to sit down, look at it, see where you fucked up, and then figure out how you're going to rectify it the next time.
Yeah. I used to do little sort of teaching classes around, but I did a thing for the Foyle Film Festival years ago, and then I also did some stuff for the Mac and things like that, and the Lyric. And what I used to always do is I would pick a scene from a movie, and I would get them to remake that scene. Sort of these wee kids making it, because then they realised how many shots are needed for that scene, and they had to put it together and match what was already done. But by doing that, they had to break it down and go, well, there has to be a wide shot here, there has to be a close-up here. But what they didn't realise what I was doing to them was teaching them, what shots you need and what order you need them in, and can you get that same close-up that appears up here from that one shot? So that you don't have to go, oh, that's now a separate shot. No, we just let the camera roll where the actor says that line for that shot. And that's storytelling, that's directing. That's what I think is the foundation of everything that I do personally. And that would be the biggest piece of advice, because we all have now cameras and phones and things. Anybody can make a movie. So it is much easier. There's free software. But if you learn the skills of editing, you will progress. Because it doesn't matter the department you're in, you will learn. Even if you're with a working wardrobe, you'll know that from that angle, that's what that piece of clothing will look like. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So what does the future hold?
Who knows? What I would like it to be is that I get to make more features and to work on some high-end television. I'm at the stage now, because this is so soon after the event for me, that my film hasn't really had its life as yet.
Yes,
so I have to kind of ride that wave for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
See what happens with that, and then start working on the next project. And how long that will be, I'm not sure, but I hope it's sooner than later.
Well, John, whatever it is, I'm sure the future is very bright. Lie of the Land is great, amazing achievement considering the budget that you had to make it. And I wish you all the best, and thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And until next time, I'll see you after.